Greetings, travelers. I'm your host, the C-Dot that knows a lot, Dr. Waluigi. When it comes to a lot of romance stories, I often come back to one that was created by the master puppeteer. Oh, haha, very funny, guys. No, I'm talking about the actual master puppeteer, Jim Henson. Yes, even Jim Henson, the man who literally gave us our childhoods after creating the Muppets, including the Sesame Street Muppets, helped create 2 non-Muppet movies before his passing. The first was the fantastical Dark Crystal, which I will be discussing at a different time, and the other is a coming-of-age story that has left many people around the world gushing for one man. For its 40th anniversary, this is my review of the Jim Henson masterpiece, Labyrinth. The movie was planned way before the masterpiece that was The Dark Crystal, beginning in 1983 when Jim met with illustrator Brian Froud and children's author Dennis Lee, which led to Jim hiring Monty Python actor Terry Jones to write the screenplay, as Jim's daughter, Lisa, had finished reading his second book, Eric the Viking, and suggested that he try out as a screenwriter with their movie. Though the actual script was written by Jim, George Lucas, Laura Phillips, and Elaine May. But after 3 years and 25 rewrites, the film was released in 1986, to very unfortunate and unfair criticism. Yeah, one of the many issues this movie faced is that while it was a box office success, making $34 million against a $25 million budget, the film was almost panned by critics at the time for it not being as good as other fantasy movies that were more popular, like Snow White or Cinderella. Which is what, according to what I have read and personally believe, led to Jim Henson's death, as the criticisms this movie received broke him and is what led him to pushing himself into working to an unhealthy degree. But there is a saving grace, as the movie has been reevaluated and it's now become a cult classic among fantasy fans, as well as having a ton of merchandise, including toys, books, both in comic and paperback formats, and even a few video games, one of which was released on the NES. Though it was only released in Japan, but there have been some people who've emulated a translated version that I just so happen to own. And to quickly mention this, I have heard that there has been a confirmed sequel in the works from Jim Henson's children, Brian and Lisa, who've chosen Robert Eggers to direct it. Regardless, this movie is still one that I highly recommend for anyone to watch as a good example of imaginative movies that should be studied with how you use puppetry and suit work, and is also what you should watch instead of these AI garbage movies that have no soul. The movie follows a teenage girl named Sarah, played by Jennifer Connelly, who ends up calling Jareth, the Goblin King, played by David Bowie, to take her baby stepbrother Toby after she ends up getting annoyed being stuck babysitting him again. She realizes her mistake and begs Jareth to return him, but he will only return Toby if Sarah can solve his labyrinth in 13 hours and make it to the center where her brother is being held. Can Sarah solve the labyrinth with all of its tricks, or will she fail and lose her brother to Jareth, where he will be turned into a goblin forever? Unlike the Muppet movies that had come out before and after this movie, the human characters are the main focus, while the Muppet creature effects take a back seat. Unfortunately, while Jennifer Connelly is a very good actress in the modern day, she's not as good in this movie. She is incredibly whiny and insufferable to listen to through most of the movie, specifically at the beginning, and the rest of the time she tries to act smart or tough towards the main villain, only for her stubbornness to backfire and lead her into more and more danger. I do understand that this was Jennifer's first movie, and her entire performance isn't terrible, but it does at times feel like she was trying to act one way, but then was told to do her performance another. David Bowie as Jareth is the definition of a heartthrob villain. I'm not kidding when I say this, but everybody thirsts over Jareth for being a sexy villain that people all over the world love to get into his non-existent pants. Which isn't a surprise, as he plays this character as someone who can grant your every wish and desire just by looking at you the right way, as well as his lovely singing. This is the movie that made me want to check out the rest of David's music and his other films, and it broke my heart when I heard of his death, as I had only recently got to hear so much more of his work. Of course, it needs to be stressed that all of the puppeteers and voice actors who did the other characters deserve more praise and attention for all the amazing work they did. I love all of these characters, from the random as hell fire gang monsters to the amazing side characters of Hoggle, Ludo, and Sir Didymus. These characters made up for the flaws of Jennifer Connelly and definitely fit the fun side characters to that of the Wizard of Oz level of memorable. There are way too many things for me to gush about with this movie outside of the characters, so I'll try to keep it to a small amount. I think the main thing about this movie that I love is that, while it's still a great puppet movie, I liked a lot of the designs in the world of the Labyrinth that are from Sarah's own room. Her companions and the creatures she meets are designed to look like the different toys and objects Sarah owns. Even Jareth is based on something from her life. If you look closely at Sarah's mirror, you'll see that she has a newspaper clipping of her mother leaving her family for another man, and that man looks like Jareth. I feel like you can tell that a lot of this movie was inspired by fairy tales like Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz, which doesn't surprise me considering Terry Jones was a huge fan of those stories. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the music in this movie. Yes, David Bowie's 3 songs are still the best, but the rest of the music is just as gorgeous to listen to. I love the score in the background, and the Fire Gang song is just as fun to listen to, even if it does have one glaring flaw. Despite all of the beautiful sets and puppetry effects done in this movie, there is one effect that hasn't aged that well, and that's during the Fire Gang song when the creators use a blue screen. The scene that uses the blue screen feels very awkward because you can see the blue outlines on the puppets and Jennifer Connelly, and it is very distracting when it pops up. But honestly, that's the only flaw this movie has, and it's an issue that is only noticeable if you're looking for it. Clearly, this is another movie of mine that I love and cherish from my childhood, but I will say that it's not for everyone. The main character may turn you off if you don't like how they write her, the romance may come off as creepy to some, though given that some people love the relationship in things like Twilight, I feel like there are worse relationships out there, and there is that one distracting blue screen scene. But other than that, this is a great example of taking old fairy tale stories and mixing it with a coming-of-age story that has an important message that I think a lot of people can relate to. While it is important that we should put away childish things, that doesn't mean that we should get rid of everything that we enjoyed from our childhood, and that those things are still there if and when we need them. Overall, I give Labyrinth a 9 out of 10. It's another example of 80s royalty that should be seen by everyone, especially if you have kids starting to transition into their early teens, and if you want to show them something that isn't Twilight. Please, show them something other than Twilight. Thanks for watching. I'm Dr. Waluigi, and remember, don't judge a book by its cover, cause you'll never know what's inside. Good night, everyone.
Dance, magic dance, dance, magic dance, make a spell on me.
This is where the wealthy and the powerful rule. It is her world.